Stripped of his powers and sent to Skyrim to prove he is worthy, in this challenge we ask and answer one simple question. Can you beat Skyrim as Thor? As we speed through the character creation and Helgen, I'll explain how we're going to do this and the rules of the run. For starters, I'm not going to use a mod to bring a model of Thor into Skyrim. I think I'll do a pretty good job of recreating the long-haired version of him, but with a touch of the war paint stuff from Ragnarok using the base game options. However, we are going to use two mods with the links in description to bring Thor's armor and weapons into Skyrim. I don't start with them and I won't be using any cheats to acquire them any easier. This is a journey about recovering our powers and saving Skyrim, hopefully. For the beginning of the game, we're going to be on a depth difficulty and I will switch to legendary once I acquire any form of Thor's arsenal. After that, I can't change the difficulty back. I'm also unable to use any healing spells or weapons that Thor hasn't used in any of the MCU films before, unless it's to progress a puzzle that I can't solve without doing so. The reason for the easier start is that the last time I actually played Skyrim was within 2 years of its release, so it's been a while and I will and do struggle with basic enemies, buttons and quests, so grab yourself a drink and some snacks because I get my ass whooped a lot on this journey. So without further ado, let's go save Skyrim. I managed to escape Helgen and the dragon, along the way obtaining the powers of lightning, albeit a little weaker than the usual Thor levels, as well as equipping some armor that will do for now and a one-handed axe that should come in handy. The first order of business is to get more supplies. Apparently, Raloph's sister in Riverwood should be able to help us out and the town is nearby. I arrive in Riverwood and Gerda doesn't believe that we have just escaped a dragon or that we're friends with her brother. Fortunately, Raloph turns up at the perfect moment. I intrude on a brief family reunion and then politely take Gerda for everything she has in exchange for agreeing to bring news of the dragon attack to the Jarl of Whiterun. Now I could feel a strange but familiar sensation drawing me in that direction anyway, so this feels like it's the right way to go. On the way to Whiterun, I encounter fellow heroes in a battle with a giant and help them take care of business. Giant slain and the legend of Thor growing, I head into town and seek out the Jarl whilst displaying how awful I am at basic character movement. Once inside Dragonreach, I bring the news of the dragon attack, hoping that I'll be rewarded generously for my good deed and receive literally the same trash I'm currently wearing. The Jarl has another quest that he wants to talk to me about with his court wizard advisor guy, but I can't help but notice that it looks like his guards have been drinking on duty. It turns out that the Jarl's wizard bloke wants me to do a fetch quest.
When I say fetch, I really mean delve into a dangerous ruin in search of an ancient stone tablet that may or may not actually be there.
With the Jarl's promise of great rewards, I begin to make my way toward the ruin and feel the familiar pull sensation nearby that I mentioned before, so I decide to make my way towards that first. On the journey, I test out my current powers against a few lowly creatures and the odd giant that proves that not only am I still bad at Skyrim, not only are we not even close to being the mighty Thor, but that I am also not going to do well once we bump the difficulty up. Eventually, I reach this mountainside with a beam of light beckoning me toward it. I race up to the light and bask in the glow of Mjolnir. I won't lie to you, I was excited to equip the mighty hammer and start using its powers. So excited that despite reading how they work, I still failed miserably at testing them out. Eventually, I got the hang of it, but I didn't really understand them until much further into the run. The key things to note are that whilst wielding Mjolnir, I am granted a few abilities. Storm Summon, exactly how it sounds. I use it like a shout with very little to no cooldown that summons a storm. It strikes enemies and unfortunately nearby allies for huge damage and stuns them. You'll get to see some allies suffering from this later. Fury, which causes power attacks to fire chain lightning at the target, and man, I love this one. Might, which I didn't realize was a toggle on-off enchantment for lots of sections of the run. The enchantment makes power attacks send targets flying, equivalent to the level 3 unrelenting force shout, and causes an AoE shock explosion with damage and knockback. And God of Thunder, a once per day use that makes my eyes glow, lightning all over my body, insane regen on all resources, and a damage boost as well. With the hammer obtained, I make my way to Riverwood to sell any junk, head towards the ritual stones to make sure that everyone knows I am indeed a mighty warrior, contract rock joint from a wolf, and of course, take the most conventional path up to Bleak Falls Barrow. I arrive and take on the bandits out front a little cautiously, but I quickly warm up as I make my way inside and fight a few more enemies like bandits, skeevers, giant spiders, treacherous dark elves, and the first Draugr, who are all no match for the might of Thor, so it's time to turn the difficulty up to legendary. Now, the Draugr take a few more hits to take down, my stamina is depleted after a few swings, and they also kill me in 1 or 2 hits, so from this point on to the end of the run, any fight against multiple enemies is dangerous. I'll be looting as many health and stamina potions as possible because I am bad and will need all of them. Also, as I sit here writing the script, I just realized that I've never actually completed vanilla Skyrim on legendary. Why did I think this was a good idea? A few deaths, fights, and complex puzzles later, I reached the end of Bleak Falls Barrow. With the first dragon shout under my belt, it's time to recover the dragon stone we were sent here for, which happens to be the property of this sleeping Draugr overlord, who I surprisingly returned to sleep a lot easier than expected. I exit the dungeon and take in the scenery for a moment. Even without visual mods, after all these years, I still appreciate the beauty of Skyrim. Anyway, it's back to Whiterun, where I bump into the most rude NPC in all of Skyrim, Nazim. I take the blessings of Talos to remove the rock joint, deliver the dragon stone, and just as I mention my rewards,
Farengar, you need to come at once. A dragon's been sighted nearby. You should come too.
the Jarl now requests my help, which I take as a good indicator that the legend of Thor is growing. He also tells me that I can buy property in the city as part of a reward, and he also hooks me up with some sneaky boots. Not really sure if I'll have use for these being a mighty warrior, but whatever. Everyone is instructed to make haste and help fight against the dragon, but they seem to be taking their sweet ass time to do so, so I hop down from the rafters and head toward the dragon's last known location. Seriously though, look how long it took for the captain of the guard to arrive and start organizing her troops. And the same thing happened at the rendezvous point for the dragon. Cowards. Waiting around for them got a bit boring, so like all good heroes, I went in alone. The dragon appears and I finally have a chance to test out Mjolnir against a real threat. I take some damage, but for the most part, manage pretty well in the fight and end up celebrating my victory by absorbing the dragon's soul. Bit weird, it must be a god thing. So it's off back to Whiterun so I can tell the Jarl the good news, get some rewards and relax with a mug of ale. But on the way, a foul voice is on the air as I hear Saruman up to his usual shenanigans. Apparently, the Jarl and everyone else heard it too. Because I absorbed the dragon's soul, I've now been summoned by a group of old blokes named the Greybeards to their home at the top of some big ass mountain. It seems I can't catch a break. The ale would have to wait.
You there. You're the one they call Dragonborn.